dear students, let us continue our discussion on renal tubular acidosis as we have been doing last time. It's a very important, rather tough subject also rather to understand. So we try to present some of the physiological concepts related to that. Let us quickly give a recap of what we have learned in that. Okay, so there is a proximal tubule and the distal tubule. The mechanisms in the proximal tubule are quite different from the mechanisms in the distal tubule. Likewise, the pathological involvement of the proximal tubular apparatus can lead to a different type of RTA compared to the distal tubular. So we have a proximal tubular RTA and we have a distal tubular RTA. We require to know that. So the fundamental mechanism is there is a bicarbonate in the urine, sodium bicarbonate, that dissociates into sodium and bicarbonate. Sodium should get reabsorbed. Bicarbonate also should go inside, but there is no way it can go inside because this membrane is not permeable for the for the bicarbonate. So what happens? The bicarbonate that is there as an ion, it combines with the hydrogen to form carbonic acid, which by the action of carbonic anhydrase 4 in the lumen, this is the lumen side, this is the blood side, dissociates into carbon dioxide and water. Water readily enters the cell, and then carbon dioxide also diffuses into the cell. Thereby, this bicarbonate that is here has been absorbed. Only constraint is it requires a company of a hydrogen ion. That hydrogen ion is donated by HATPase, the energy gated mechanism, or by this is called an anti-porter. Anti-porter is the porter where one molecule enters inside and another one crosses outside. This is called anti-porter. Likewise, here also is an anti-porter. This is called a symporter. That means both go in the same direction. It's a symporter. This is an anti-porter. This is an anti-porter. Here, sodium hydrogen exchange anti-porter 3 is the one at play, and that secretes the hydrogen here as well as the HATPase. Somehow the hydrogen is here and it combines with the bicarbonate that is generated from the sodium bicarbonate, and that produces carbon dioxide and water. That gets in here by the action of carbonic anhydrase 2, that becomes carbonic acid, which immediately dissociates into hydrogen and bicarbonate. Of course, the hydrogen is useful to bring some more bicarbonate inside. Whatever bicarbonate is generated here, and 3 molecules of bicarbonate, and along with 1 sodium can go through sodium bicarbonate exchange 1. Sodium bicarbonate exchange 1, and that is a symporter. But only thing is, for 3 molecules of sodium bicarbonate, only 1 sodium can go. 3 molecules of bicarbonate, only 1 sodium can go. The remaining 2 have been exchanged by the sodium potassium ATPase. Just like the HATPase, the sodium potassium ATPase is energy dependent, and it pushes 2 sodium this side and brings in 2 potassium. This is on the basolateral side. So an abnormality in any one of these mechanisms can lead to a proximal renal tubular acidosis. So what are the things? NHE3, HATPase, carbonic anhydrase 4, carbonic anhydrase 2, and NBCE1 or NAK-ATPase. These are the 6 sites at which something can go wrong, which can result in a pathological condition. All this is in the PCT. Let us look at the DCT. And the DCT, we know there are 3 types of cells. These are one is the alpha intercalated cell, the other is the beta intercalated cell, and the third one is the principal cell. So we are interested in the alpha intercalated cell to start with. I showed them individually. Here, the main purpose is the bicarbonate, the carbonic acid here is converted into by the carbonic anhydrase enzyme into bicarbonate and then hydrogen, just like in the proximal tubule. Only difference is here, instead of the bicarbonate exchanged through the NABCE, here there is what is called the anion exchange 1. So there is another sort of antiporter where bicarbonate moves in and then chloride moves out. Whereas that is a symporter, it takes sodium as well as the bicarbonate only in one direction towards the blood. So this is an antiporter here. This is called the kidney anion exchange 1. We don't write K because K stands for potassium. We write kidney anion exchange 1 or simply called anion exchange 1. So that's how the bicarbonate that is here generated gets into the system. That is bicarbonate reabsorbed. And for the bicarbonate to come here, we require hydrogen to be secreted. That hydrogen goes like this through HATPase or HKTKATPase, not the NAATPase. This is the one here. In this cell, it is the potassium that is exchanged and not the sodium. There it was sodium hydrogen exchanger. Here it is, that is a antiporter. Here it is potassium hydrogen exchanger. So much of hydrogen, when it moves out, potassium comes in. This is a potassium reabsorption, hydrogen excretion, bicarbonate conservation. And what are the things that can go wrong? Either this one, or this one, or this one, or the CA2. So alpha intercalated cell, there are 4 possibilities of a derangement. CA2 may be misfunctioning, or AE1 may not be exchanging chloride and bicarbonate, or HKATPase is not pushing the hydrogen into the lumen and bringing potassium into the cell, or HATPase, which is an energy dependent channel, is not opening. One of the 4 mechanisms can occur. Then let's go to the, what is the net result here? Net result is bicarbonate excretion is secondary. Primarily acid is excreted. Whereas in beta intercalated cells, the other way around. Here H goes towards this side and there is an energy gated channel and hydrogen is absorbed. Bicarbonate is excreted through a sort of receptor called pendrin, which is again an antiporter, pushes the bicarbonate out and chloride here. This is to facilitate bicarbonate excretion and hydrogen conservation, just opposite to what is happening in the A intercalated cells. So which cell works depends upon the acid-base balance of the body. Suppose there is excess acid, then what will happen? The acid will be pushed here and the bicarbonate will be absorbed to neutralize the acid. Whereas there is, let us say there is excess base, that is bicarbonate is there, then the bicarbonate is pushed out and hydrogen is absorbed to mop that bicarbonate. This is in metabolic alkalosis, this will be functioning. In metabolic acidosis, this will be functioning. So alpha intercalated cell, beta intercalated cell, they are just converse of one another. In the alpha intercalated cell, it is the bicarbonate reabsorption and hydrogen being sent out. Whereas in case of beta intercalated cell, hydrogen reabsorption into the body, bicarbonate is sent into the lumen. So these are the basics. Then there is another cell in the distal tubule, which is called the principal cell. This principal cell is slightly different in that it is controlled by the mineralocorticoid receptor. We know that mineralocorticoid receptor is activated by the aldosterone. What does it do? It opens the channel. These are called the ENAC channel. So this channel directly pushes like a gate. Now floodgate, it is open and the sodium just moves into that under the influence of aldosterone. If there is excess aldosterone, excess sodium is reabsorbed. That's what we see in aldosteronism. And at the same time, the potassium channel also opens in exchange, not in exchange actually. When the sodium moves in, to keep the electrical gradient, the potassium moves out. Along with the sodium, there is aquaporin channel 2 also is opened, and that facilitates the entry of the water. So sodium and water reabsorption. So excess aldosterone causes sodium reabsorption, water reabsorption, and hypervolemic state, edema, and hypernatremia. That all we see in hyperaldosterone. So this mineralocorticoid receptor, once it is stimulated, it acts on this channel as well as it acts on NAK-ATPase, where sodium is pushed into the body, potassium is exchanged, and that potassium goes through this channel. This is the mechanism in the principal cell. So suppose there is a hypoaldosteronism. That means aldosterone is not there. What happens? This channel is not open, and this channel also is not open. So much so sodium is retained in the, sodium is not entering here, so no sodium enters into the body. Likewise, potassium is retained because this sodium is closed. This potassium channel is closed, so there will be hyperkalemia. There will be hyperkalemia basically because the aldosterone is not there, the potassium gate is not open, neither this sort of exchanger also is working, so potassium is retained here, it is not allowed to go into the cell for excretion. So this situation occurs in another type of renal tubular acidosis, which is called the RTA4. We'll come to that. And again, this aldosterone absence may be a total absence or relative absence or resistance. So, or there may be a drug which is blocking it. Suppose you give a aldosterone blocker, spironolactone antagonist, or you can block the receptor, MRA antagonist, or it could be it is a primary aldosteronism, or it could be secondary to several causes, or the receptor itself is insensitive, just like the insulin resistance, aldosterone resistance also can occur. So these are the various mechanisms. We have seen the PCT, we also saw the DCT, the three types of cells. A basically is interested in conserving bicarbonate and excreting the acid. B is basically connected to conserving the acid and excreting the bicarbonate. The principal cell is basically under the influence of aldosterone, and in the presence of aldosterone, sodium is absorbed, water is absorbed, potassium is sent out. In the absence of aldosterone, sodium is not absorbed, potassium is retained in the body, and that results to hyperkalemia. Okay, let's go further. Now, we need to know a little bit about the physiology of ammonia genesis. Ammonia generates in the PCT from the metabolism of glutamine. Ammonia is generated in the proximal convoluted tubule by the metabolism of glutamine. Glutamine is one of the end products of other amino acid metabolisms, and any amino acid metabolism ultimately ends in glutamine, and that glutamine is converted into ammonia. Where does it occur? In the PCT. This ammonia, NH4 thus generated, is secreted into the proximal tubular lumen. Combines NH3 combines with hydrogen there in the PCT and gets into the lumen as ammonium ion. At least when the NH3 goes into the lumen, their hydrogen is available. It combines with the hydrogen secreted by the HATPase, we know that. So NH3 generated in the proximal tubule goes into the tubular lumen, takes the friendship of the hydrogen already secreted by the HATPase, which we know is an energy dependent gate, and or is transported by the NHE. There is another transporter there, NHE, sodium hydrogen exchanger 3, either by the HATPase or by the NH3. One of them is sending the hydrogen out. That hydrogen is available by the ammonia to form ammonium ion. Okay, and there is also another mechanism where chloride and bicarbonate are exchanged in the other area. There, once the chloride is bicarbonate is absorbed and chloride is available into the cell, that chloride appears in the urine and that combines with the NH4 to form ammonium chloride. So the odor of the urine is basically because of the ammonia or the ammonium ion. Exchanger and kidney anion exchanger called the AE1. ClHCO3 is called the anion exchanger 1, which is present in the distal convoluted tubule. Okay. This function as a sodium hydrogen exchanger. This functions as a sodium hydrogen ion exchanger. NH4 is transported along the length of the PCT to the medullary thick ascending limb. Not that it's only occurs in one area of PCT, the entire length of the proximal convoluted tubule and also gets into the medulla of the PCT and again ascends into the thick ascending limb also it is there. Absorbed into the medullary interstitium primarily by the apical sodium, potassium and chloride transporter. Whatever ammonia is there, it is again the medullary interstitium. Whatever ammonia is absorbed into the medullary interstitium is again brought into the urine. Ammonia is secreted into the CT collecting duct and is trapped as ammonium ion. Again, the hydrogen secreted by the intercalated cells there. The hydrogen is secreted by the alpha intercalated cell, and that hydrogen secreted by what? Either HATPase or this is the only one that is available in the distal convoluted tubule or the collecting duct, and that hydrogen again combined. So what is next slide? In the PCT, ammonia is generated from the glutamine, and that ammonia NH3 combines with the hydrogen. Where from the hydrogen is coming? By HATPase or by NHE3. Okay. In the DCT, when it comes to, there is no NHE3, but there is what is called a HATPS that generates hydrogen ion. That hydrogen ion and the ammonium that is generated will become ammonium ion that is excreted in company with the chloride. Okay. Whenever there is less of ammonia in the urine, the chloride also cannot be excreted. So the chloride is also retained. We see hyperchloremia also in the absence of poor ammonia excretion. Otherwise, chloride can be excreted as sodium chloride also, no problem. But if we require sodium for the body, sodium is reabsorbed under different mechanism. The chloride to go out requires the company of ammonia. So whenever there is a sort of less secretion of hydrogen ions or ammonium ion into the urine, then there is not much of ammonia in the lumen. So not much of chloride is taken along with that. So chloride is retained. Okay. The physiology of ammonogenesis is continued. Collecting duct NH4 excretion requires a special channel called rhesus protein or RHG. So simply because the ammonia is formed from the glutamine, it cannot escape into the tubular lumen. There is a special porter there, and that porter is called the RHCG porter or rhesus protein porter. This is very recently recognized, around 15-20 years back. Before that, nobody knew this protein. They were thinking that ammonia just like that, which is detected on both the apical as well as the basolateral membrane. Please mute your microphones. Hello. Rajaram. Disturbs my flow. Okay, the rhesus protein RHCG is required for the ammonia to be pushed into the lumen. RHCG is present both on the apical side and on the basolateral side. On the basolateral side, to allow ammonia in and out from the interstitium into the cell and from the blood into the cell, and at the apical part to allow the ammonia to get into the lumen and thereby into the urine. RHCG is the key putative NH3 transporter in the human kidney. Remember, this is very important, a very important transporter for ammonia. NH4 excretion by the kidney results in the elimination of acid. Why? NH4 is nothing but NH3 plus one hydrogen ion. And that hydrogen is an acid, so that is excreted. Generation of new bicarbonate in the PCB. This process generates the new bicarbonate also. Elimination of acid results in the generation of the bicarbonate into the blood. Aldosterone plays a major role in ammonia generation, both through the regulation of potassium homeostasis and through the hydrogen secretion into the lumen. So much so, what do you know? By ammonia means there must be a special protein called the RHCG protein. And this is present in the distal convoluted tubule and the collecting ducts, the collecting ducts and the collecting tubules, both on the basolateral membrane and on the apical side. And this ammonia secretion indirectly favors the bicarbonate reabsorption. And also because when hydrogen is going out, the base is absorbed. And secondly, the aldosterone plays an important role in the generation. Let us see diagrammatically what is happening here, just as we have seen. Okay, now look at the diagram. So there is blood, there is glutamate, and that glutamine is converted into glutamate, and that glutamate is converted into alpha ketoglutarate. Alpha ketoglutarate, is a very important, one of the important steps in the Krebs cycle. So glutamine from the amino acid pool, glutamate, alpha ketoglutarate, and that gets converted into bicarbonate and ammonia. Okay, this ammonia diffuses into the lumen through the, and HAN diffuses through the, goes through the gate called the HATPase, and that combines to form ammonia. Or it can pick up some hydrogen within the cell itself and become ammonia ion here. And this ammonia ion is exchanged by the NH3, the same one which exchanges the hydrogen Here instead of hydrogen, it exchanges the ammonia, which also contains hydrogen. So it's a sodium ammonia exchanger, the same NH3 which is there earlier also. Here the same one is operating here. Where is this happening? In the proximal tube. Okay. Now the sodium that has come in and the bicarbonate that is generated is pushed into the body. Bicarbonate is conserved when ammonia is excreted, and sodium also is conserved by the sodium bicarbonate exchanger 1, which is a symporter in the same direction. This is an antiporter, this is a symporter. So where the ammonia mechanism can go wrong in the PCT? One, when the HATPase is not functioning, or when the NHE3 is not properly functioning and sending the ammonia out, or when the NABC is not functioning and pushing the bicarbonate. If there is excess bicarbonate here left in the cell, it will stop the reaction and will not allow it to go this way, so much so ammonia is not generated. And let us see the alpha intercalated cell. This is the proximal tubule. This is the distal tubule. We know in the distal tubule we have got alpha, beta, and the principal cell. In the alpha intercalated cell, ammonia is there in the interstitium, has diffused into the cell, or there in the blood is diffused here. This ammonia has to get into the urine. For that to get into the urine, it has to become ammonia ion. For that, it requires HATP. There is only one mechanism. H is secreted, ammonia diffuses, both of them go. This diffusion of ammonia here is under the influence of the rhesus protein G. So that is the one which allows the ammonia to go and combine with the hydrogen to form ammonium ion. Okay. Now, we have understood the physiology of proximal tubule. Physiology related to the alpha intercalated cell in conserving the base and excreting the acid. Physiology of the beta intercalated cell in conserving the hydrogen ion and excreting the base. And we also looked at the principal cell, which is under the influence of the mineralocorticoid receptor, wherein it absorbs the sodium and also it water, and it excretes the potassium. And in the absence of that, what will happen? The deficiency of that, what will happen? Excess of that, what will happen? We have seen. Now we also looked at the ammonia mechanism in the PCT and also the ammonia mechanism in the DCT. We knew that there is an important protein called the RHCG, which is important in the transport of ammonia into the tubular lumen. Now, what are the types? What is renal tubular acidosis? What is renal tubular acidosis? By definition, it must be metabolic acidosis because it is not related to the carbon dioxide excretion in the lung. So it is a form of metabolic acidosis. So the first foremost feature is metabolic acidosis. Okay. It's metabolic acidosis. Number two, it is a non-anion gap metabolic acidosis. We know metabolic acidosis of two types, non-anion gap and anion gap. Metabolic acidosis is featured by decrease in the bicarbonate, decrease in the pH, and of course, secondary variable carbon dioxide also decreases, all in the same side of the pH. This is metabolic acidosis. So, we know it is non-anion gap metabolic acidosis because in anion gap metabolic acidosis, other anions are added like salicylate, alpha ketoglutarate, or the ketone bodies or lactic acid or outside acids are added. Whatever is the cause, what are all the mud piles you have, causes of agma. Now we are not dealing with that. We are dealing with agma. And we know when the bicarbonate goes down, when no other anion is there, the chloride has to go up because anion gap is to be maintained. Anion gap is sodium minus bicarbonate plus chloride. If the bicarbonate is low, chloride swings up. That is what is called the hyperchloremia. And we also know when we have metabolic acidosis of the NAGMA type, we have to differentiate it from gut causes and renal causes. And we do that by doing a urine anion gap. Urine anion gap will be positive in this particular case. Urine anion gap will be positive. And remember, normally what will happen? Normally what will happen whenever there is acidosis, we expect the potassium to be high. We know that potassium is the poor man's barometer. If the pH is lower, acidosis is there, potassium will be high, alkalosis is there, potassium will be low. But here, because the mechanism is involved in the kidney, there will be hypokalemia. Instead of an expected normal or higher potassium, here there is a hypokalemia, which is a feature of the RTA. But not all RTAs have this. Those which involve the proximal tubule and the distal tubule, they will have that. But type 4 RTA and other voltage gated RTAs, they will not have hyperkalemia. Instead, they will have hyperkalemia. Understand? The features of RTA, renal tubular acidosis is a form of metabolic acidosis. The culprit organ is the kidney. Metabolic acidosis is characterized by decrease in the bicarbonate, decrease in the pH, and consequent decrease in the carbon dioxide, which we are not looking at because we are looking at the primary variable only. We are not looking at the secondary variable. Now, it throws a type of acidosis which is called the RTA always produces NAGMA type of metabolic acidosis, non-anion gap metabolic acidosis. It means the anion gap is not widened, so chloride and bicarbonate has to match each other for the available sodium. So naturally, when the bicarbonate is lower because of acidosis, there is a hyperchloremia. Hyperchloremia is not the cause, it is the consequence there. Okay. Normally in a metabolic acidosis, we expect the potassium to be higher. Because of reasons which will be explained, here the potassium is lower, hypokalemia. Except this happens in type 1 and type 2, type 3, not in type 4, not in voltage gated, in which case we have hyperkalemia. The manifestations will be hypokalemia manifestations, weakness, muscle weakness, paralysis, fatigue, all those manifestations of hypokalemia here, and we will see what happens there. Now, what are the types? Features are here, types are on this side. 1, proximal tubule. 2, distal tubule. 3, hyperkalemia. 4, voltage dependent. 5, mixed type. Okay. Proximal tubular RTA, that means it is the mechanisms in the proximal tubule are at fault. We have seen the mechanisms. What are the mechanisms which govern the movement of hydrogen ion and bicarbonate ion in the proximal tubule? Distal tubular acidosis, again the mechanisms in the distal tubule. Proximal tubular acidosis is called type 2 and distal tubule is called type 1. Don't get confused because this is the one first described. This was called type 1. But it is the effect of the distal tubule. We know that 90 to 95% of the absorption of bicarbonate occurs. Water also, most of it is absorbed in the proximal tubule. The distal tubule is only a fine tuning. It just fine tunes depending upon the body's condition. Whether whatever the acidosis or alkalosis, the proximal tubule just pushes all the nutrients like sodium, bicarbonate, glucose, water, everything is just absorbed because they are sort of filtered to a large extent, and all that filtered is climbed back. But in the distal tubule, the fine tuning occurs, whether which should be selectively absorbed, which should be secreted, which should be not absorbed, all that depends upon the chemistry, biochemistry of the body. So, proximal tubular acidosis is called type 2 acidosis. Also, the defect is in the proximal tubule. Distal tubular acidosis is in the defect in the mechanisms in the distal tubule, which is called the DRTA, which is type 1 RTA. Then, hyperkalemic acidosis. These are hypokalemic, whereas this is hypokalemic. Whereas this one is hyperkalemic acidosis, also called type 4 in some books. The type 1, 2, 3 you forget. Easy to remember: PRTA, DRTA, hyperkalemic RTA. because there is no confusion about it. This is the way internationally it is now thought of. PRTA, DRTA and hyperkalemic RTA. There is another thing called the voltage dependent RTA. This also will have hyperkalemia. I will explain you the mechanism. What is then type 3? Why type 1, type 2 or the type 3 is not there? Yes, there was a type 3. There was a type 3 which they thought it was a mixed P and D. Now almost very rare and nobody considers type 3 RTA. If at all you see some books, it is type 3 RTA. It is nothing but there is a defect in the proximal tubule as well as in the distal tubule. That is also called the mixed P and D, proximal and distal RTA. That is called type 4 RTA. So you have to learn proximal RTA, distal RTA, hyperkalemic RTA, a little bit about voltage dependent RTA. So you may get a short notes on RTA as an essay question may be there, or you may get an RTA and PRTA or DRTA or type 4 RTA, hyperkalemic, or even voltage dependent also. So it's possible in the theory you may be asked. So you better understand them very clearly. Hope this slide is very clear. Clear-cutly distinguishes the features, the biochemical features. Rather, these are not clinical features. What is happening in the biochemical features and types of RTA. So, RTA is a metabolic acidosis. Bicarbonate is lower. pH, because it is acidosis, pH is lower. Carbon dioxide tension also is lower. It is a non-anion gap type of acidosis. That means the chloride and bicarbonate have to adjust between themselves. So because the bicarbonate has come down, the chloride has to be more. In order to distinguish, this sort nagma is of two types. One from the kidney, the other from the gut. In order to distinguish the gut causes like diarrhea, ureterosigmoidostomy, pancreatic fistula, biliary fistula, in order to distinguish them from the renal one, we require a urine anion gap, which will be positive in this case. In the gut causes and then the ureterosigmoidostomy, it will be negative. What is urine anion gap? Urine sodium plus urine potassium minus urine chloride. Urine sodium, urine potassium minus urine chloride. What is anion gap in the plasma? Sodium minus bicarbonate plus chloride. Here chloride is same here also. Bicarbonate is missing here. Why? Because there is not much of bicarbonate in the urine. Why potassium is added? There potassium is an important constituent of the cation of the urine. So an extra cation along with sodium potassium is added. One anion is removed bicarbonate because bicarbonate is not an important constituent of the urine. Normally, in normal urine. Normal urine, most of the bicarbonate is reabsorbed. We don't see much of bicarbonate. So urine anion gap is sodium plus potassium minus chloride in the urine, not in the blood, in the urine. And that is a positive number normally up to 30-35. It is more positive in case of RTA and it is 0 or negative in case of gut-related nagma. And usually acidosis we expect to be hyperkalemia, but type 1 and type 2 RTAs, they are associated with hypokalemia for reasons which will be explained. Will there be hyperkalemia in some RTAs? It will be there. In type 4 and voltage dependent, there will be hyperkalemia. Okay. What are the types of RTA? Proximal RTA, proximal tubular cell function is at fault. It is called type 2. Distal RTA, which is called distal tubular function, is at fault. Various mechanisms there, and that is called the type 1. Hyperkalemic is called type 4, and voltage dependent is called also type 4, voltage dependent RTA. And what is the type 3? Type 3, nothing but mixed P and D, that is proximal and distal, which is called the mixed RTA, which we will not be studying at length. We will be studying only 1 and 2 in a greater detail, 3 to some extent, and a mention about the voltage dependent RTA. So remember, these could be essay questions or theory, short notes questions also. Now, let us look at each one of them. What is happening to each one of them? So proximal RTA, also called the PRTA, small p, and then it's also called the type 2 RTA. And the diagram I have kept on the top so that you keep remembering what is happening in that proximal tubule to get you back into the memory what is happening in the proximal tubule. And this is the lumen side and this is the blood side. Okay. What are the mechanisms? One mechanism is HATPase. The other mechanism is the antiporter, NH3E. The third mechanism is carbonic anhydrase 4. Fourth one is carbonic anhydrase 2. And the fifth mechanism is this one. This is not affected. That is not under RTA, the last one. So now you see a defective bicarbonate reabsorption. All this in the proximal tubule, the end result is bicarbonate is pushed into the body. That bicarbonate resorption is at fault. That means alkali is not absorbed to match for the acid. So there is metabolic acidosis. Defective bicarbonate resorption is the underlying mechanism. How does it occur? Because of the defective secretion of the hydrogen. How can it occur? Either NH3 or H1ATP. This is the one. NH3 is 1. HTATP is number 2. Or an impairment of the function of the carbonic anhydrase 4 or by the symporter. One of the 5 mechanisms. This mechanism is not at fault in renal tubular acidosis. That is a separate story when we come to aldosterone control and all. We will see that. Okay. So, defective bicarbonate resorption into the system is the major problem. Why bicarbonate is reabsorbed? Because hydrogen it is not secreted. If hydrogen is not secreted, there is no company for the bicarbonate here. If hydrogen is missing, the bicarbonate is go down into the urine. Bicarbonate is not reabsorbed because hydrogen is not secreted. And that secretion is under the influence of 1, sodium hydrogen exchanger 3, which is an antiporter, H1ATPase, which is a energy driven gate, number 2, or Ca4, which is in the lumen, or Ca2, which is in the cytosol or the cell, or the fifth one is sodium bicarbonate symporter into the blood, which is not being pushed, the bicarbonate into the blood. When bicarbonate not being pushed into the blood, bicarbonate is retained here and it interferes with the bicarbonate, this reaction. This reaction will be stopped. So bicarbonate excess here will stop the reaction. And so bicarbonate is not absorbed. Okay? Sometimes what will happen is this proximal tubule is very important to reabsorb all our important nutrients like glucose, amino acids, phosphate, anions, and uric acid. All absorptions are occurring in the proximal tubule. And there is a syndrome called Fanconi syndrome in which the resorptive mechanisms of the proximal tubule are all damaged together. Along with that, this RTA also can be one part of it. So type 2 RTA can be one of the components of the Fanconi. It can be one of the components of the Fanconi, or it can occur de novo without the other components of Fanconi syndrome. As usual, any of these defects in the molecular level can be hereditary, can be acquired. Hereditary means driven by the genes, and acquired is because of some drugs or other causes, other diseases. Hereditary co-transporter NEBCE1 mutation. This is that. Co-transporter NEBC is sodium bicarbonate exchanger 1, which is a symporter, a mutation of that receptor, which will not allow the bicarbonate to enter the body. Bicarbonate stagnates in the cell, so much so bicarbonate is not reabsorbed further from the lumen because the reaction is stopped there in the cytosol. And that loss of bicarbonate in the urine, when the bicarbonate is lost in the urine, there is excess acid in the body. It leads to acidosis or renal tubular acidosis. Why it is called tubular? Because the defect is in the tubule. It is renal because it is a renal tubule. Okay. So hereditary PRTA, the co-transporter NEBCA1 mutation. There are other mutations, an X-linked LOI, an autosomal recessive Fanconi Bickel, or the Dent disease, which is also an X-linked disease, which are rarer syndromes which you may not remember. But remember, there are some genetic syndromes associated with PRTA. And they are, the basic defect is NBCE1 mutation. Names are not important. There are some genetic. Then there is what is called an acquired PRTA, acquired due to certain diseases of the body. Like, there is a injury by the light chains produced in the body, amyloid deposition in the kidney, multiple myeloma proteins, autoimmune reasons, cadmium, lead, valproic acid, carbonic anhydrase inhibitors, the antiviral tenofovir, all of them can damage one or more of these 5 mechanisms. What are they? NHE31, H1 ATP, not H1 actually, H plus ATPase, ATPase, CA4, CA2, or the NBCE1. Any one of them may be damaged by these causes. What are they? Tubular injury by amyloid, light chains, myeloproteins, autoimmune complexes, cadmium, heavy metals like cadmium, lead, valproic acid, carbonic anhydrase inhibitors, tenofovir. Particularly when you are treating a patient with other combined by antiviral agents, tenofovir can cause renal tubular acidosis. Okay. What are the manifestations? I know there is hypokalemia is a feature. These are weakness and paralysis due to hypokalemia. There is bone pain and fracture. Why? The same carbonic anhydrases are required in the bone. And there, the carbonic anhydrase, whatever is defective here, similar defect is there also. And there is bone pain and fracture because not much of calcium is available. Calcium also is lost in this particular urine. Not to the great extent as in case of distal RTA, but to some extent. So, what will be the end result? Because of this, the serum bicarbonate is much lower. Much lower means normal is 24, here it may be 10, 12 like that. Whereas in distal RTA, it will not be that much lower. It is lower to 22, 20 like that. Here, the bicarbonate lowering is much lower because the main mechanism is bicarbonate absorption is at fault. The defect is in the bicarbonate absorption. And what happens to bicarbonate not absorbed? The bicarbonate remains in the urine. That means markedly alkaline urine. Also called bicarbonate wasting. Bicarbonate is wasted, urine is alkaline. Normal urine pH is acidic, around 5.5. Here it is more than 5.5 or 5.2 because of the presence of alkali or wasting of the bicarbonate. What is the treatment? You have to supplement the bicarbonate oral 10 to 15 milliequivalents per kilogram per day. And because there is hypokalemia, you have to supplement potassium, and you can use hydrochlorothiazide also to bring in some more potassium inside, and then also to excrete the bicarbonate. So the first primary treatment will be bicarbonate in the form of 10 to 15 large quantities, 10 to 15 milliequivalents per kg per day, potassium supplementation, not controlled, hydrochlorothiazide. This disease I am again telling, understand. There is basically a defect in the bicarbonate reabsorption. The defect is in the proximal tubule. That is why this is called the proximal RTA. Okay, and this bicarbonate is not absorbed because one or more of the mechanisms in the PCT at fault. What are they? Number 1, NHE3. Number 2, HATPase. Number 3, carbonic anhydrase 4. Number 4, carbonic anhydrase 2 in the cytosol. These are all related to hydrogen ion, whereas there is another mechanism of absorption of bicarbonate, which is by the NBCE3 sodium bicarbonate exchanger 1, which is a symporter. Any one or more of the mechanisms may be at fault. This particular syndrome can occur de novo on its own, or it can occur along with the other tubular defects such as Fanconi syndrome. If it occurs with Fanconi syndrome, there will be renal loss of glucose, amino acids, phosphate, uric acid, and other anions, and features of Fanconi syndrome will be associated with the features of PRTA, which is also called type 2 RTA. Just remember as PRTA. if you are asked about PRTA, this slide is just enough to describe everything. Then, what are the causes? Generally, these molecular defects will have a hereditary cause or an acquired cause. Children are most affected in the hereditary group, and we see in the pediatric age group, the major defect is NBCE cotransporter mutation on the basolateral membrane of the proximal tubule. That results in some syndromes, Loeys, Fanconi-Bickel, and Dent syndrome. What could be the acquired causes? Whenever the tubule is damaged by excess protein, as in case of light chain disease, amyloidosis, multiple myeloma, autoimmune complexes, or heavy metals like cadmium, lead, or drugs like sodium valproic acid, and then the carbonic anhydrase inhibitor like Diamox, or antivirals, particularly the tenofovir. Okay, how does it manifest? It manifests as paralysis or weakness because of hypokalemia. There is also bone pain because there is an involvement of the bone carbonic anhydrase and also some disturbance in the calcium metabolism. What will be the features? Features of metabolic acidosis, NAGMA type, bicarbonate is reduced and urine anion gap is very high, and then bicarbonate is very markedly reduced, and urine is alkaline because bicarbonate is not absorbed and it is pushed in the urine through the lumen, and that is called the bicarbonate wasting. How do I treat? Give oral bicarbonate and 15 milliequivalents per kilogram per day, and also potassium supplements to correct hypokalemia. Hydrochlorothiazide also may be useful. So this is all about the proximal RTA. We'll go to the distal RTA. Distal RTA is called the type 1 RTA because it's the first type is detected first. So distal RTA. Here the defect is in the distal tubule. Distal tubule, which cell? There are 3 cells there. What are the 3 cells? The first cell is the alpha cell, which conserves the bicarbonate. The second cell is which conserves the acid, beta. The third one is the principal cell. Obviously, because there is a defect in the conservation of bicarbonate, only we are getting acidosis. That is why the alpha intercalated cell will be the one that is affected. Impaired acid excretion and urine pH is higher, alkaline. Urine pH is alkaline because alkali is lost. Defect in the hydrogen ion secretion and reduced net acid excretion in the urine. Net acid excretion is reduced means urine becomes alkaline. In fact, this is the commonest form of renal tubular acidosis. Among all the forms, renal tubular acidosis, DRTA, is the commonest form of renal tubular acidosis. Previously, it was bicarbonate resorption that is at fault. Look here, that is at fault. Whereas here, it is the acid excretion that is at fault. Defect in the HAN secretion, and that results in net acid excretion is reduced, the commonest form. So when the acid excretion is reduced, ammonia excretion is reduced because for ammonia you require hydrogen. That means there is a decrease in the titratable acid excretion. And because the acid is not there, the bicarbonate is wasted here also. The secondary wasting of the bicarbonate, primarily ammonia excretion is at fault, hydrogen secretion is at fault. What are the areas it can go wrong? 1. HATPase. 2. Cytosolic carbonic anhydrase. 3. AE1, anion exchanger in the kidney, AE1. So these are only 3. There are 5 mechanisms there. There are 3 mechanisms here. 1. The energy dependent hydrogen channel is not open. This is called the, there is another channel called the HKATPase. That is not affected. HKATP is not affected, but the HATPase is the main defect that is seen. Second one is the cytosolic CA2 and the kidney anion exchanger. Okay. What happens when the hydrogen is not secreted into the urine? Ammonia excretion is impaired because ammonium ion cannot go without the company of a hydrogen ion. It has to become ammonia, then only it can pick up chloride, then only it can go as ammonium chloride. Ammonia is a gas, It even dissolved, it cannot be excreted more. It has to become ammonium chloride, then only its solubility will be more. So ammonia excretion is impaired. Impaired ammonia in the lumen by defects in the hydrogen ion secretion. Unique feature of DRTA is very low urine citrate. Why this happens? The proximal convoluted tubule absorbs all the citrate because there is an intense metabolic acidosis. Here, this triggers urine citrate absorption in the proximal tubule, and very low urine citrate is available in the distal tubule. And again, this can be hereditary and this can be acquired. What are the hereditary causes? Kidney AE1 defect could be here, or it could be HATPS. And if it is HATPS, it is associated with sensory neural deafness also in these people. Okay. And or sometimes what happens, cytosolic CA2 mutation also can occur. So hereditary, there could be a defect in the AE1, there could be defect in the HATPS, or there could be cytosolic CA2 mutation can also occur. Usually cytosolic CA2 mutation, it calls for similar mutation in the proximal tubule also. That is where you get the type 3 or the mixed one. They were mistaking it as a separate type, but it is the same type, so type 2, this is a DRTA only, but there is also a little effect in the proximal tubule because of the carbonic anhydrase mutation there. Now, the similar carbonic anhydrase problem occurs in the bone osteoclast, also osteopetrosis, bone pain can occur because osteoclasts are inhibited. So naturally bone resorption is not there, deposition of bone occurs there. Acquired causes are Sjogren syndrome, systemic lupus erythematosus, rheumatoid arthritis, transplant kidney, primary biliary sclerosis, sickle cell disease, drugs like amphotericin B, lithium carbonate, zoledronate, which uses bisphosphonate for treating, bone disorders, or hereditary hyperparathyroidism. Okay, hyperparathyroidism, maybe it's acquired hyperparathyroidism or congenital or hereditary hyper. HPTH is hyperparathyroidism of whatever cause. Sjogren, rheumatoid arthritis, SLE, transplant kidney, PBS, sickle cell disease, amphotericin, lithium carbonate, zoledronate, and then hyperparathyroid. These are the causes. It's not over yet because we should know the features, clinical features, and also we should know the treatment. Now, there could be sometimes antibodies against the HATPase may be demonstrated, or AE1 transporter antibodies may be demonstrated, or carbonic anhydrase 2 antibodies may be demonstrated. It could be an autoimmune injury to those particular areas like HATPase receptor or the AE1 receptor transporter or the carbonic anhydrase. Here, the hypokalemia is severe. Signs and symptoms of severe hypokalemia, including proximal muscle weakness, polydipsia, polyuria, and renal caliculi. Why renal caliculi? We will see. Positive urine anion gap, we know RTA is associated with a positive gap, and low urine osmolar gap. Osmolar gap normally is 300 to 400. Normal urine osmolarity. Plasma osmolarity, we know 290. Urine osmolarity is 300 to 400. In this case, it is 100 or 150. How to get the osmolar gap? Say osmolarity same as the formula there. Sodium into 2 plus urea divided by 1 divided by 1.8 and glucose divided by 18. Here, sodium plus potassium also you have to add. That's the only difference. Otherwise, the calculated osmolarity minus the measured osmolarity will be there, calculated osmolarity will be there. The difference is called the urine osmolar gap. Okay, a positive UAG and a low urine osmolar gap feature the distal tubular acidosis. What is the treatment? The dose of bicarbonate required is much smaller because it is primarily acid excretion at fault and not the base absorption. There it is 8 to 10 milliequivalents, here it is 1 to 2 milliequivalents per day. Now the most important difference feature is renal stones, nephrocalcinosis, are a feature of DRTA which are not a feature of the PRT. Why? Why? Because of low urinary citrate, high urinary calcium. Okay? High urinary calcium, calcium citrate is a soluble salt. If calcium is there, high urinary calcium, citrate is available, it can go as calcium citrate, which is a soluble thing. Whereas if there is no citrate, what will happen? It will use the phosphate to go out. But calcium phosphate is not that soluble, so calcium phosphate precipitates, and that produces that particular precipitation occurs in alkaline pH, and urine now is alkaline. The stage is set. There is no citrate for easy excretion of calcium. There is, on the other hand, there is phosphate available there, and urinary calcium is high. Urine calcium phosphate is formed. Some of it is dissolved. But if the pH is alkaline, it can no more be in solution. It becomes crystalline. That is deposited in the kidney as renal stones as well as in the nephrocalcinosis, deposition in the kidney parenchyma. Renal stones are stone formation in the pelviureteric junction, pelvis, ureter, and in the bladder are the stones, passed into the bladder. So if somebody is getting a recurrent renal stone disease, you must think of distal RTA. Okay, now you look at here. So urine anion gap, sodium plus chloride, the anion cations minus the anion chloride, what remains is the urine anion gap. Okay, urine anion gap normal is 30 to 35. Positive gap occurs in renal tubular acidosis, particularly in DRTA. Negative in gut and other causes of NAGMA. Okay, why there is urine anion gap? This indicates ammonia there. Indirectly, urine anion gap tells about ammonia. Normally, ammonia is excreted as ammonium chloride. Since we don't have much of chloride, ammonia there, the chloride also is of the is lower because the chloride is retained in the body. Hyperchloremia, that is there because there is no company anion, ammonium chloride. So normally it is ammonium chloride. Ammonia is absent. So chloride is also absent. When the chloride decreases, the minus part decreases. When the minus part decreases, the result becomes higher or positive. You understand why urine anion gap is positive? Na plus K is normally managed or matched by the chloride. Here the chloride is not there in the urine because ammonium chloride is not there. Why ammonium chloride is not there? Ammonia is not there. Because ammonia is not there, chloride is in the body. So because of low chloride, the Na plus K minus chloride becomes a higher positive number. That means urine anion gap is increased. What happens in gut when you lose bicarbonate? You also lose sodium chloride there. The chloride also is lost. So there is no problem with acid excretion here. Ammonia is secreted to compensate for the acidity. Here kidney tries to excrete more acid in a case of diarrhea where the alkali is washed out. In that case, urine anion gap even becomes 0 or negative because there is more chloride in the form of ammonium chloride as a compensation for the excess base due to diarrhea. Excess washout of the base due to diarrhea. The acidosis is because of the washout of the base. So in that case, the urine anion gap will become 0 or negative. Here it is positive because of this reason. Look at this small table. There is a hyperchloremic acidosis, which means it is a NAGMA. When there is a hyperchloremic acidosis, look at the urine ammonia. The urine ammonia is more. That means kidney is trying to compensate for the GI loss. The loss of bicarbonate is the cause. And because the ammonia is excreted, urine pH is acidic. Urine pH is acidic. How do I distinguish the hyperchloremic acidosis of GI origin and hyperchloremic acidosis of renal origin? By looking immediately in the urine. Urine ammonia is more, ammonia is acid, urine is acidic, and the GI loss of bicarbonate is the reason. Either you have diarrhea or you have pancreatic fistula, or you have erythrosigmoid osteometa. Okay, that is the reason. Supposing hyperchloremic acidosis, urine ammonia is lower, that means kidney is not able to excrete the acid ion. Acid ion is required for ammonia ion. So ammonia is less. Then look at the potassium. Is the potassium low or the potassium high? If there is ammonia low and potassium low, there is renal loss of bicarbonate is there. This is a hypokalemia associated with the hyperchloremic acidosis. And that can be only two types, type 1 and type 2. How do I distinguish type 1 and type 2 hypochloremia? Looking at the urine pH. Urine pH is more alkaline. In case of type 1, this one, because it is the bicarbonate wasting, bicarbonate absorption is, sorry, the urine pH is more than 5.3. Here it is variable because type 2 RTA, initially it will be, urine pH may be normal, later on it may be more acidic. So look at the urine pH. This is one little way of dissecting the different causes of hyperchloremic acidosis. It's all about the distal renal tubular acidosis. Now we are left with two more conditions, which are nothing but the hyperchloremic kalemic acidosis RTA and the voltage gated RTA. These two are there. And on top of that, we have to have the algorithm for the diagnosis. That will be our next class, where we will go for the voltage gated and as well as the hyperchloremic RTA due to aldosterone problem. And we look at an algorithmic approach of diagnosis of RTA. Now we have very clearly understood distal RTA and then proximal RTA and about the various types and features of RTA. And we also recapitulated the physiology of the PCT. In the DCT, the alpha cell, the beta cell, and the principal cell, and also we looked at the ammonia excretion in the PCT and in the DCT. That's all is today's lecture. If you have any questions, you can.